I am Bable Jonathan, and this is the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe television, live from our headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, dwelling our top stories in this edition of the news. Despite calls for a ceasefire, the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa says warring parties in the northwest and southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon continue committing gross human rights violations and abuses against the civilian population. We'll bring to you details in this newscast. We'll also talk about the problem of insecurity and human bones trafficking and increasing business in the Republic of Cameroon, and the fight engaged by the National Gendarmerie against high crime wave and that illegal activity. The Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa said that despite calls for a ceasefire in the northwest and southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon hit by socio-political and security tensions for close to 4 years today, human rights violations and abuses have continued in those two regions. The Center for Human Rights and Democracy has said in a report that the warring parties, notably the separatists and the forces of defense and security in the Republic of Cameroon, have continued abusing and violating the rights of civilian populations. Details in this report by
To the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa, warring parties have continued inflicting civilians in the northwest and southwest regions pain with their atrocities and gross human rights violations, despite calls for a ceasefire and negotiation.
In the recent weeks, we have witnessed an upsurge in violence occurring in the northwest and southwest regions against the civilian population, and this is perpetrated by both the armed separatist fighters and the military.
The Barrister Agbobala's rights group has documented cases of violence against the civilian population in the villages of Ekona and Pinyin in the southwest and northwest regions respectively, perpetrated by the military, and cases against the civilian population committed by armed separatists.
This morning we issued a report in which we gave a detailed account of an incident which happened in Equinoxe, where civilians were extrajudicially executed, and another which happened in Pinyin in the northwest region, where a heavily pregnant woman was shot with a grenade, and this was done by the military. Before we make this report, we have interviewed eyewitnesses, we have interviewed victims, we have interviewed family members of victims who all narrated what happened, who committed the act, and when it happened.
CHRDA, on the other hand, condemns atrocities committed by separatist fighters in the two English-speaking regions, like the abduction of a teacher in Bamenda, Shea Polycarp, on July 20th, 2020, and the children in Lebialem Division, Southwest Region. The teacher was on his way to supervise the GCE computer practical exams. He was promised death for being a traitor. His abduction follows kidnapping of about 60 children in Lebialem, Southwest Region.
These incidents are gross human rights violations. They are human rights abuses, that is why we keep documenting all these gross human rights atrocities committed against the civilian population. And we are calling on both parties to find a lasting solution to this crisis so that civilians can return to their normal life, and then we can see how we can move ahead.
The Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa condemns these atrocities in the most strongest terms, calling on government to investigate the various cases and bring perpetrators to justice.
And in the report, we give a recommendation to the government to carry out an independent investigation and bring perpetrators to justice. We do not want a situation where we are going to give impunity a chance to prevail over justice and the rule of law.
This to the Balance organization will put an end to impunity and give the rule of law and peace a chance to prevail.
Now we talk about the rising crime wave in the Republic of Cameroon and the human bones trafficking business gaining grounds in the country, and the National Gendarmerie is waging a merciless war against criminality and that illegal activity, and some of the alleged bandits have been arrested. They were presented to the public today here in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. Manjikan Gabriel has more. To that report in a short while. Time for us to talk about the Standard and Quality Control Agency, ANO, which has launched a war against the production and consumption of non-conformity cosmetic products, or products that do not respect norms, and together targeting producers and consumers. ANO says that products without conformity and harmful control products that do not respect conformity norms will simply be taken or seized and destroyed. For me, Armstrong Sander.
Five cosmetic products poses a health danger to consumers, according to the Standards and Quality Agency in Cameroon, ANO. Warning against the practice, ANO officials say they are fighting to kick that out of the Cameroonian society. According to Charles Fokker, ANO consultant, they have developed a standard certification program that takes into consideration all categories of production. They are promoting 3 types of certification, which requires that procedures be in conformity with all international standards. Above all, the Standard and Quality Agency ANO is laying emphasis on the sensitization of consumers. ANO wants consumers to always check their products to ensure that the NC mark, which is the Cameroonian mark of conformity, is present. NC is the only conformity mark as of now, given that others are still being developed by ANO. The NC mark on each product certifies that the product went through the necessary procedure and is fit to be consumed in Cameroon. Enterprises in the cosmetic sector are also being sensitized. Experts from ANO brought them together in the economic capital city, Douala, to drill them on updated programs and the procedure to obtain conformity and the Cameroonian Conformity and Standard Mark, the NC mark.
Cocoa farmers in the Mongo Division littoral region of the Republic of Cameroon are experiencing a serious slump in business. The purchasing power of the population, the buyers, significantly dropped, and business is now very slow. They are unable to catch up with their usual income.
Cocoa and coffee farmers in Lum in the Mongo Division of the littoral region lamenting over what they qualify as exploitation by cocoa buyers. According to these cocoa farmers, cocoa buyers offer 800 francs CFA for a kilogram of cocoa in Lum, whereas in other parts of the Mongo Division like Banga, the same quantity is bought at 1,250 francs CFA, a situation seen by Lum cocoa farmers as discriminatory. They do not understand why buyers should offer less to farmers in their area and more to farmers in other areas for the same quantity. In desperate attempt to find a solution to what they qualify as a cankerworm in the sector, farmers rallied in front of the Lum sub-divisional office to table their challenges to the divisional officer. In response, the divisional officer told farmers that they are suffering from the consequences of disunity. He equally reiterates that their inability to unite together and come up with a unique selling price is the reason why they are being exploited by buyers. The point of the divisional officer is further complemented by one of the farmers.
The
head of the National Coffee and Cocoa Board in Loom calls on the farmers to be united in order that they can better boost their negotiation power.
Insecurity remains a major problem in Cameroon. From the big cities to the hinterlands, persons are often attacked at close intervals of time in the day, in the night by suspected armed robbers. And besides that, the illegal business of human bones trafficking is equally gaining grounds, and the national gendarmerie is stepping up the fight against these issues in the Cameroonian society. Some of the alleged bandits were presented to the public today in Douala. Manjikan Gabriel reports.
From the first view, one will think that the bag on the ground contains dresses and the owner wants to travel. But no, inside the bag are human bones and that of the great-grandparents of Wafo Kwam Cedric, who exhumed them in Bangante, West region of Cameroon. I'm asking that God should forgive me because I'm going to be punished justly. I am guilty, and the person who advised me wrongly, God should also forgive him. His advisor is a close friend who works at a company with him in Douala, who told him to abandon what he was doing for a more lucrative business. The human bones, after successfully exhumed, were supposed to fetch him the sum of 1,500,000 francs CFA. The mother of Wafo Kwam Cedric laments. He told me that he was going to earn 1,500,000 francs, and he took the risk without my knowledge. He is not a bad child. I don't know why this should happen to him. The 24-year-old was arrested in the Dakar neighborhood in Douala as he was about to sell his goods. Another who was arrested by the elements of the second region of the gendarmerie in Douala was Mo David, aka Ben. He is being accused of being a member of a gang alleged to be specialized in breaking into homes and stealing of cars in Douala and Kribi, where Dominique, one of his victims, is coming from. Her stolen car was recovered in Boya. They broke into my house and threatened me with their gun. Since they were all armed, they asked for the car documents and they took alongside money, telephones and other electronics. Last May 23rd, 2020, the same group of gang attacked a foreigner in Kribi at the residence of Mr. Wanko. With the use of their gun, they collected his vehicle marked Toyota Avensis. As we brought him to Douala for investigation, Moi David went ahead to name his gang members and we are in search of them.
Ces autres complices qui malheureusement sont en cavale à l'heure de cette enquête. Toutefois, les recherches entreprises en vue de leur découverte s'intensifient.
A locally made pistol was discovered in the keeping of Moi David. The investigation that led to the capture was supervised by Colonel Jean-Marie Amugu, who is calling on the population to collaborate with the forces of law and order. We are calling on all to join hands for us to eradicate this phenomenon of human bone trafficking and stealing of vehicles. The two suspects were later taken to court for justice to take its course, while the runaway members of the gang are now considered as most wanted in the country.
The movement of persons within countries affected by the coronavirus pandemic and across borders is still significantly perturbed. In the Republic of Cameroon, the Prime Minister and Head of Government, Chief Dr. Joseph Dion Gute, says that all measures have been taken and are being implemented at the level of air transport amenities, notably the Yaoundé-Simaleng International Airport, ahead of the eventual reopening of the country's airspace. He was on a working visit to the Yaoundé-Simaleng International Airport today, and out of Cameroon, majority of French, Germans, Italians and Spanish say they have scrapped the idea of a holiday this summer amid the COVID-19 outbreak. Cuts Urius.
From the outset of the COVID crisis, the European ideal of open borders came under severe stress. As the disease spread, some governments gave in to a nationalist reflex and shut their frontiers. With circumstances improving, they've begun reopening. But how do people feel about it? In partnership with pollsters Redfield and Wilton Strategies, we sought the views of residents in several countries. And there's a stark difference between Germany and others. While distinct majorities favour border closures in Italy, France and Spain, in Germany, where the death toll was much lower, more than half of respondents feel they should be kept open. Yet, somewhat paradoxically, 56% of Germans feel it's not safe to cross their borders to head to southern countries. And that's also the prevailing view in Italy, France and Spain in particular, where 6 in 10 people think it's unsafe for northern Europeans to travel south. That's bad news for Mediterranean nations hoping for a recovery boost from this annual summer migration. Before the pandemic, Germans were those most intent on holidaying abroad, and over 2/3 of Italians, French and Spaniards had some kind of travel plan, whether abroad or domestically. Now that's all changed. 61% of Germans aren't going anywhere, and a similar proportion in Spain are also staying put. The Italians and French are a little more adventurous, but just over half in each country have no travel plans. In all 4 states, very few are going abroad. The easing of lockdown coincided with the start of the holiday season, but the reopening has been too little too late for anything like a return to normality. And as we've seen recently, the threat of a second wave means travel across Europe remains highly vulnerable.
George Floyd's death in the United States of America has sparked the debate on racial violence in Europe's police force. Is it endemic and unavoidable? Answers to this question in the upcoming investigative report revealing where the issue is highly controversial in Europe.
In the wake of the death of George Floyd in the hands of the United States police, protests echoed across Europe to denounce racial violence committed by police forces. In France, thousands of demonstrators answered last June to the call of the Truth for Adama collective, a group called after the 24-year-old man who died 4 years ago under police custody. His sister Assa has become the movement's iconic figure. For 4 years, she's been fighting to shed light on her brother's death. She wants those she says have fatally crushed her brother to the ground to be tried for manslaughter.
My brother bore the weight of 3 gendarmes during 9 minutes. Today, we demand that the facts be reclassified as intentional homicide. Today we denounce police impunity. We denounce racial violence. We denounce social violence.
A call to which thousands of people responded on July 18th. Several families of victims of alleged police violence shared anger over their relatives' unpunished death.
The system and the state want to ensure that we who are from immigrant backgrounds are pushed to the side. We're second-class citizens. Every time a youth's killed by the French police, that person's criminalised, and that's not normal, because the police have no right to take young people to their deaths. The death penalty's been abolished.
For Assa Traoré and her supporters, the Adama affair symbolises an endemic evil.
My brother is dead because of racist and violent behaviour by police forces. It's systemic. We are calling for justice for Adama. It's for all the Adama Traorés, and for things to change, and for no one to have the right to take anyone's life away.
Accusations against which the French police had demonstrated last June. Racism in the police only concerns a small group of people, they say. The National Police Management Headquarters declined our interview requests. David Lebars heads the Union of French Police Commissioners. He admits there can be wrongdoings, but rejects accusations of widespread racism and impunity in the police. He does think the institution has lost track of its core mission and needs an overhaul. In your book, Hatred in the Eyes, you describe the decay of the working conditions of the police. You wrote that police officers have nothing to gain from showing their humanity. What do you mean by that?
Today we're crushed under a huge bureaucratic burden. We have tedious administrative and judicial processes. There's no space left for the human dimension and common sense. I believe that this dehumanization also affects our relationship with citizens. We're overstretched in activities that are always seen as repressive. I believe that the population no longer sees the other side of the police, which is prevention, reassurance, protection. These are structural issues linked to the organization of the police and more broadly all law enforcement.
Dehumanization that some say is deeply ingrained. Several reports have slammed abusive police methods.
We're in a state of law here. It's police control. You stay silent and you obey.
Human Rights Watch has recently issued a damning report on police identity checks, especially among minors, as seen in this video.
I was ID checked twice. The first time was when I was 9 or 10 years old. I thought it wasn't normal for the police to body search 10-year-old kids.
In 2016, this lawyer won a major legal battle. France's highest court of justice ruled against the state in cases involving police checks based on physical appearance and racial criteria. So-called face controls, which can have serious consequences, according to the lawyer.
It has an impact on the relationship of these minors or young adults towards the institutions. For them, the Republic is not a republic. They can't breathe in it, as they are constantly afraid to be ID checked. And they will be ID checked. It's part of their daily life.
Reconciling young people with institutions is the aim of the Red Aventure Association, founded by a former elite police officer. During summer camps or days organized throughout France, police officers volunteer to explain their profession to children and teenagers from so-called sensitive neighborhoods.
The root of the problem lies first of all in education. I believe that we must really look seriously at these issues. I think it's through this type of action that we'll be able to recreate the social bond between young people and the institutions, and the national police in particular.
Some policemen, the first thing that crosses their minds is to beat people up.
I don't know. I've been working with them for 9 years and I don't see that. There are some young people who do not see what happens on our side. It's a shame.
I say the police aren't racist. Police officers are right, and we can say the thugs are also right. Because it's illegal for police to beat up young people, and thugs too shouldn't go around misbehaving. It's give and take.
This is an opportunity for them to discuss with police officers without animosity outside our working context, and then it opens a debate.
Dialogue is not always easy. We follow a march in the town of Mantes-la-Jolie on the outskirts of Paris. A tribute to a 34-year-old man found dead in the Seine River a few days earlier. Local police informed his wife of the death by phone, saying he had committed suicide. She doesn't believe it and has filed a complaint for an investigation to be opened.
How can you want to kill yourself when you're going on an errand? He was on his way back home to bring pizza to his children. Explain that to me.
Many more questions surround the death of Lambanjai, she says. Doubt is spreading and distrust in the police and the institutions rise, as in other communities who feel left out by the state.
In France, there is a two-tier justice system. There is one justice for the France from above, and there is another justice for the France from below.
The head of an association of victims who fought for policemen who shot her brother dead to be convicted with a 5-year suspended sentence had come to support Lambanjai's family.
The family is not here to say that it's necessarily the responsibility of the police. We just do not know that, but they want to be sure of it. There is doubt, because many young people have been dying for years, and there are many unanswered questions and inconsistencies. It's normal for this family to take steps to demand the truth, and, if needed, for justice to be done.
I just want to know where my husband died. It's as simple as that. So I can start mourning with my children.
We reached out to the town's police commissioner. The ongoing investigation forbids him to give us details, but he claims that proof is there to confirm the suicide thesis. The case is in the hands of the prosecution.
And that's it for today's edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television. Thanks for staying with us. Goodbye.